Right, Mr. Mandela.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for making the time.
It's a pleasure.
Wonderful. I listened to your speech yesterday, and as I was seated right in the back, I was telling myself that I should sit down with this man before he leaves.
Yes.
So first and foremost, I understand that you are on a tour.
Yes.
You started off at a different college. Where was it, by the way?
I started off at Choate, Rosemary Hall.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you're planning to end with what?
So my last one will be in New York.
In New York.
Bloomberg.
University. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. That's perfectly fine. So, just briefly tell me, what is this tour about? What are you hoping to achieve?
So with this tour, like all tours that I've done, obviously, this is the first tour I'm doing now post-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And like the message I've been, talking about before, it's really to talk about South African history,
mm-hmm.
apartheid. I talk about the next generation of African leaders, the importance of the next generation of African leaders, not just African leaders, but youth leaders,
mm-hmm.
and how they should recognize that they are the people that are going to really change this world to
mm-hmm.
a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, being a grandson of Nelson Mandela, I talk about the Nelson Mandela legacy.
Oh, yes.
And what Nelson Mandela stood for.
Mm-hmm.
And right now we are launching the Nelson Mandela Leadership Program,
mm-hmm.
which we also call the 100 Mandelas.
Wonderful.
Because we feel that young people need to understand the value and the principles of Nelson Mandela
mm-hmm.
and how they can apply that in their own journey as they strive to become the next leaders,
mm-hmm.
as entrepreneurs, as social entrepreneurs, but ultimately to inspire and encourage young people
mm-hmm.
to become the best version of themselves.
Wonderful, wonderful. That is perfect. So, I understand this program is ongoing, and you obviously have an enrollment program where you take in a group. They go through the training. They go through, the plan of everything that you want to achieve with the program.
Right.
So, how does it work? Who gets to be taken? How is the process?
So we're going to be launching this program later this February.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at attracting young people who are aspiring entrepreneurs or already entrepreneurs
mm-hmm.
who have started their journey between the ages of 24 to 35.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a two-part program.
Mm-hmm.
The first part is a 4 to 6 online master classes,
mm-hmm.
which will be done by myself, as well as Sister Shabazz,
mm-hmm.
Malcolm X's daughter, as well as Martin Luther King's daughter, Bernice King.
Wonderful.
And we also have Professor Ann Pratt, who is a professor who taught a class at Harvard on Nelson Mandela's blueprint leadership,
wow.
where she identifies not just IQ and EQ,
mm-hmm.
but 6 other intelligences,
mm-hmm.
such as environmental intelligence,
mm-hmm.
social intelligence, physical intelligence, which Nelson Mandela was proficient in every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And she shows how Nelson Mandela used every single one of these intelligence. So ultimately, she's also writing a book which will be, I believe, released later this year.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we are looking at getting our first cohort this
mm-hmm.
year. We're taking about 15 people,
mm-hmm.
all in all. Half of them will be from the American continent,
mm-hmm.
but looking at people of African origin.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will then be selected together with other young people from the African continent,
mm-hmm.
as well as minimum of 2 Brazilian participants, because our idea is to not only teach the values of Nelson Mandela, but also to unite our young people and make them understand the importance of coming together and working together in order for us to really encourage the next generation to understand that they are the masters of their destiny, and the young people of today are the ones to take this people of African origin to the next plateau.
Mm-hmm. That is perfect. Thank you so much. So now, I understand that you just recently published a book,
Yes.
And this should be 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And this book entitled Going to the Mountain.
Yes.
Lessons from your grandfather,
right.
Nelson Mandela.
That's right.
What's the message
So
of
the
this
first
book?
thing, I wanted young people to understand who Nelson Mandela was as a grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to bring Nelson Mandela closer to young people.
Mm-hmm.
Young people may not necessarily be able to relate to a president or a revolutionary, but they can relate to a grandfather because we all have grandparents, right? Obviously teaching the lesson of Nelson Mandela. But when I say going to the mountain, I'm talking about two things. Firstly, in our culture, we are circumcised.
Oh, yes, yeah.
As Xhosa men, as a rite of passage, between the ages of 16 to 18, generally around 18. I went when I was 20 years old. And this is obviously where you get circumcised and you get to understand and learn your roots, your lineage, your spiritual being, that you're connected to the ancestors. And secondly, when I say going to the mountain, I am talking about the challenges that are faced by young black people all over the world, because we are a marginalized people. So for example, if you aspire to going to college, you live in a ghetto.
Oh, yes.
Firstly, you have to, meander through the social ills that are present in the ghetto. There is domestic violence, there is drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and so you need to find a space for you to study in this very tumultuous environment, right? And then from there, you apply to university. How are you going to pay to university? How are you going to pay the university? You get to university, you come out of university, now you need to go and get a job.
Oh, yeah.
And you are actually going to compete against your white privileged counterpart. So every step of the way as a young person, as you're trying to develop yourself, as you're trying to find your feet, move from college to career, you are going to the mountain in each space. And Mandela reminds us that each time we climb a mountain and you reach the top, you realize there are many more mountains that you have to climb. So each stage of our lives, we have to go to the mountain. So these are the two meanings of going to the mountain. And so this is really the message, is to say, do not ever wane, do not ever be discouraged. We as black people come from great adversity.
Oh, yes.
And we are the most resilient people on earth. And so we encourage young people to continuously go to the mountain, reach the top, climb another mountain, and continuously be the best version of yourself. Never be discouraged. Always keep marching. Keep the fire burning.
Wonderful. That is great. Right. So I'm going to want to take you back, to the very early days of your experiences with Madiba, as they say.
Yes.
So now I understand he was arrested. When he was arrested, you were not yet born.
Yeah.
Probably your father was still very young.
Yeah.
But now he gets out of jail.
Right.
And you get the very first opportunity to see your grandfather.
Right.
How was that?
Well, the first time I got to see him was actually just before he was released. The family got an opportunity to go see him in jail. And so, I was told as a young man, 8 years old at the time, that we're going to see your grandfather in jail. And so as an 8-year-old, I had a very typical image of what jail was like. Concrete bars,
Oh, yes.
wardens, security dogs and all that. But when we got there, I had not realized that he had been moved from Robben Island to Victor Verster, where he was kept for the last 6 years of incarceration, in isolation, because they were trying to break down Nelson Mandela mentally. To say, Nelson Mandela, you see this house that we've provided for you? We can provide this house for you and your family for the rest of your life. If you denounce your organization, if you denounce your comrades, and get rid of this movement. But of course, as much as they tried in those 6 years to try to break him down mentally, Nelson Mandela never broke down. He never denounced his comrades. And one thing I saw there, there was a swimming pool. I never had a swimming pool. I met a chef for the very first time. I didn't know what a chef was. We had such good food. And that was the first time I had an idea of what I wanted to do when I grew up. Most kids want to be lawyers, doctors, astronauts. I told myself that day, when I grow up, I want to go to jail. Because I thought this house was jail.
Obviously, yeah. And it was purposefully done to, to create this image that we can provide you with all the material things of this world.
Right.
As long as you abandon this cause
Exactly.
that you are fighting for.
Exactly.
Wow. So now, how did you then start to stay with Madiba?
So what happened is that I moved back to Soweto, where I was staying with my parents. And one day, actually, I was playing marbles outside my house, in the afternoon, around about 3 p.m. And obviously, my parents were not there because parents were at work. They only come home around 6, 7 p.m. And as we were playing marbles outside, black BMW rolled up. And out jumped a man from the driver's seat wearing a suit. And he came to me and he said, "Are you Ndaba?" And I said, "Yes," very surprised that this man that I've never seen before knew my name. And he said, "Your grandfather has sent me to come and fetch you." And I was like shocked. I said, "The last time I saw in my mind, I'm thinking the last time I saw my grandfather was just before he came out of jail. I haven't seen him since." And I said, "No, I'm not going with you." And he said, "Do you have any idea who your grandfather is?
Wow.
Do you want me to get fired?"
Wow.
And I said, in my mind, I'm thinking stranger danger, right? And eventually the man gave up and he left. And so when my father came home later that day, I told him what had transpired. And he said, "You know what? If that man comes again, you should go with him." And so I went with him. When he came back later that week, and I jumped into the car and he drove to the leafy white suburbs of northern Johannesburg. And we pulled up to a gate, electronic gate opened up, and we went inside and I saw a police van and I saw security guards. And then I went inside the house and I saw people busy cleaning, and there was a lady, Mama Oli, she was there cooking. And she gave me a sandwich. She says, "Oh, your grandfather's coming just now, just wait here." And then my grandfather came, a few minutes later, and he said, "Well, Ndaba, you are going to come and stay with me. Your father never had the opportunity to go to university. So I'm sending your father to go to university. I don't want your father to worry about you while he's at university. I want him to focus on studies. So as he's focusing on studies, you will stay with me. I will take care of you." And that's how I moved in with my grandfather.
Oh, I see. I see. Wow. That's how the journey then starts to begin.
That's right.
Wow. So now take me through some of the lessons that you picked as you were living with this man who is the president of a country, but at the very same time, he is also a grandfather to you.
Right.
He has this image that he has of the outside,
right,
where he's respected, he's all the time he's with ANC comrades, he's
That's
with
right.
state security and so forth.
That's right.
But when he comes back to you, he's trying to be a grandfather.
That's correct.
How was that?
Well, my grandfather was very strict. He liked everything to be neat. Many people don't know that he was a military man.
Wow.
He was actually the first commander-in-chief of the military wing of the ANC. Because they felt that the peaceful means of protest and marching was not working to actually get their message across to the white apartheid regime, that they demand their human rights as human beings, regardless of their skin color. And so they were with that firebrand, as they call them, because they felt that they needed to do something to hit back at the system. And so he actually trained under Haile Selassie in Ethiopia 6 months.
Wow.
And then he did another 6 months in Algeria. And so he was very strict. And, I remember him walking past my room, and my room was obviously upside down. And he came back and he said, "No, Ndaba, you cannot live like a pig. This is how you fold your clothes. This is how you fold your bed.
Wow.
And you must also exercise." And he took the medicine ball from his room and he brought it and he showed me how to do the exercises.
Wow.
And how to make sure that your stomach is always flat.
Wow.
And push-ups. And I mean, he was already late.
He's in his 80s
in
now.
his 80s.
Yeah.
But he showed me, physically how to actually
do
exercise, how to fold my clothes. And of course, I remember, later in life, he said to me as we were having dinner the one time, "Ndaba, you're my grandson. Therefore, people will look at you as a leader. Therefore, you need to get the best marks in class." And I was like, whoa, the pressure,
that's pressure, yeah.
But later in life, I realized that parents put pressure on their kids not because they want them to fail under the pressure, but because they want them to be able to reach the best version of themselves. You understand? How is a diamond created? Through lots of pressure that has been put under the ground until a diamond comes out. So our parents want us to become those diamonds.
That's true.
You know, those leaders, those people that strive for excellence. And that's what he was trying to say to me. But at the time, I was still a young man, and I was just happy sitting at the back of the class and pea shooting girls at the back of the neck.
Wow, wow. And obviously, when you get to school, everybody's like, this is Mr. Mandela's grandson.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
And obviously, the pressure, you feel it as well, that I should deliver. So now, you know, Mr. Mandela is celebrated the world over.
Yes.
As a great man. He is my hero. I consider him to be my hero.
Yes, even me.
My grandfather was a big fan of Mr. Mandela.